So I'm Jillian.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Olivia, and together we are votED. We have an app that seeks to revolutionize politics as we know it today. So let's talk a little bit about what this is. What's our problem, right? There's a lack of voter education and engagement in society today. Especially in young people, people either choose not to vote, they vote uneducatedly, or they vote just simply based off political affiliation, which leads to just checks on the ballots. In a study done, it was shown that only 16% of people can correctly identify both senators. Now, if you don't even know who your senators are, how are you expected to create an educated vote? The solution is our votED app. Even though this is an app, it's more than just an app because it's an engagement platform. What it basically is that the idea is 5 minutes. It's a collective environment with everything. So instead of going through on your news articles, on your base, on the government base, on anything, you can just go to our app. It has absolutely everything. It is going to show a list of your political officials, the different things that they vote on. It's going to send you notifications for your upcoming elections. And it's going to get you to engage. The idea is in under 5 minutes, you get to know absolutely everything there is to know about your voting area. So let's show how it works. 3 simple steps. Super easy, right? First thing, you're just going to enter your zip code. Next, it's going to come up with a list of all of your different elected officials. You can just click on elected official. It's going to show their recent voting history, how they're going to vote on different bills or issues, and recent articles regarding to them. That way, especially with the younger people, instead of going online and looking through different articles, 5 minutes on our app. Let's talk about the potential opportunity. This is huge, right? Because we are seeking to revolutionize how voting is today. We want to increase participation, increase engagement, have everybody voting. We start with just young voters in Massachusetts. That's our target range is young people, 18 through 24. We move on to all voters in Massachusetts, all 18 through 24 voters, and finally all voters in the United States, which is just about everyone in the United States. I mean, our opportunity is limitless. Our budget, the main thing we want to do and the first thing we want to do is get our iOS coding done. That way we can send the app out right away. Our plan for that is to go to different schools and get students, coding students, to do the coding for the app, therefore dropping our prices down. We estimate about $5,000 for each app. We want to get our LLC registration, legal fees, and social media outreach is huge. Because young people, they're always on their phones, they're scrolling through their Instagram, their Twitter. We want them to see our app all the time. Ad revenue, we have a very conservative number for ad revenue. This is extremely scalable. So we say that there's 50,000 daily users, which is actually less than 2% of all the voters in Massachusetts. So if less than 2% of people in Massachusetts use our app, then we would make $800 per day. So as you can see, that's extremely scalable. If we can get that to all states at a 2% rate, we could be making up to $8,000 per day. So the main question I have for you is, are you ready to revolutionize politics? Are you ready to get people engaged with votED? Now I'm going to open up the floor. Any questions, comments, concerns?
What are your respective majors?
So I am a business. I believe we're all business majors.
Yeah, all business majors.
What facets of business? Have you determined your concentrations here?
Yes, so I'm going to be an accounting major once I transfer to school. We're all from Middlesex.
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, so then we have plans to transfer into a 4-year school.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in marketing.
Okay.
And I'm actually planning on majoring in business, economics, and politics.
Okay.
Therefore, this is
Right down your alley.
I actually I work for the Democratic Party of Massachusetts. This is, of course, it's non-biased, this entire app, but I
Gee, that was a question.
yes, of course, but I do know the political world.
Yeah.
So you're currently Middlesex?
Yes.
Good.
That's awesome.
I have a question for you. Have you thought about your ongoing operating costs?
Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad you asked that, actually. So what we plan to do is actually link our app to the statewide database, which is super easy to do. And the statewide database is mandated to be updated by the state whenever anything updates. So it will actually automatically update through our app. Just whenever the state's updated, we're updated. and it's as current as you can get. And that will be basically nothing. As far as actual cost moving forward, we do actually have a projected budget for moving down, like our 5-year budget. But we wanted to do just to project like what's going to happen next step. But we've already done the planning for how we want to do things in the future. This is going to happen.
How far down the food chain would you go with elected officials? For example, you get the president, the vice president, the U.S. senators from Mass. Do you then get into congressional districts? Do you go into individual municipalities and selectmen or city councilors?
Yeah. So there's going to be, obviously with local elections, there'll be notifications. As far as just the list, the farther down you go, the less relevant they become. So we will be doing, take for example me. I live in Concord, right? So I'm going to have, obviously, the president, the vice president. I'll have Elizabeth Warren, Ed Markey. I'll have my Laura Trahan, which is my representative for my district, my congressional district. And then we'll have like state auditors, Suzanne Bump, and Attorney General Maura Healey. We'll also have like Ayanna Pressley. So you'll see those names. So that we plan on going, I would say those are who you're going to see. So your Attorney General, your state representative, your congressional district, and your senators.
So you just mentioned everybody who's in office, but so can be two comments, but when it's election season, and there are 26 different Democrats running for the primary for one seat, basically, will you be able to get all of that information, and how do you get a hold of like their platforms, or if you want to dive deeper into the candidate?
Yeah. Perfect question. So when there is an election coming up, there'll be a bar in the app that's just basically like election, and you'll click on that and be able to see election and elected officials. Obviously, if there's 26 candidates, we might not see all 26, but however, usually I would say you'll have, usually it will come down to like, I would say in Massachusetts, about 4 candidates for each side, which is, that's pretty reasonably large, conservative for Massachusetts. So you would be able to see each of those 4 people and how they vote on issues.
So how would you, to get the bias question out, how would you select the 4 out of 26?
So we would just, the top 4. So whoever is polling the highest in prospective polls. Usually, again, I've had experience in politics. We know exactly who's in the top 4 at all times based off prospective polls, based off of polls that have been done. So whoever is in the top 4 spots, and then obviously after the primaries, it would just come down to the top 2.
And so you've got how they voted, the senators, right, what they voted on.
What they voted on.
What would you offer up for, say, the president, the office of president, the vice president? How would you portray them in that?
So the things, it would be their stances on major issues that are current today. So maybe global warming would be one. So their stance on of course it depends on what issues are present, but the idea is that the app will target things that are relevant and happening. So whatever issues are you talking about like if there was going into a presidential election? Or, okay, so going into presidential election, yeah, it will be how they run their platform. Obviously, if you're running for president, you should have a relatively clear platform. So we're going to show what that platform is. So take Elizabeth Warren in her presidential run, for example. One of her things is like doing away with the electoral college. She believes that she's big on just get rid of it. So that would be one of the things. Another thing that she has is breaking up larger companies, the oligopolies of society. So that would be another thing. Those would be her viewpoints.
Yeah, in addition to trying to remain unbiased, our competition is also kind of our allies because they're all different websites. None of them have an actual application. And so they've managed to go through and do the same kind of unbiased sort of reporting. And so luckily we can try and partner up with them to try and make it so that they can link to us and so that we can kind of have a similar sort of outlook with them. As they have their sort of unbiased opinions and kind of show both sides of an issue, we can just kind of link with them, we can model ours after them, whichever company we partner with.
And how would you convey to the users that there is no influence by the developers, or there is, there's no monitoring? what the data is that you provide, you know, that
Yeah,
it's truly.
that is truly
real.
unbiased. Exactly.
So it's
Yeah.
real data.
That's real data. Yeah. So definitely, we want to show that that it is unbiased, and we want to use a similar platform, like a similar conceptual idea there, as in like Rock the Vote or something like that, where we definitely want to get our name out there. So like as a reliable source, obviously, and we will, of course, sources is a big thing. So wherever we're getting this information, it's going to be cited. So you see that they're voting that way on a political issue. Where'd you get that from? Maybe it was in the debate. So right there, it's going to cite the debate. If it's an article, it's going to cite wherever the article came from.
Additionally, we're also not going to have any advertisements that involve sort of strong political affiliations. So our advertisements are not going to be based off of like anything that's like a candidate or anything like that. Just so that way we can kind of walk the walk that we're talking.
So I think sometimes we have to be careful with articles.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, would you, because it's you know, the three parties, would you pick maybe articles or have three clearly, you know, favored channels or publications that are affiliated with each?
Definitely. So we want to make sure that we're using reliable sources for any of the articles that we're pulling. So sources that are very popular, such as maybe we'll use like the New York Times or sources like that that you see appearing a lot. And another thing is it's going to be based off of trending articles. So what articles are getting the most clicks? Basically the idea is if I was to go home and search up like Elizabeth Warren today, let's say, what I would get. So if I was to search up like, instead of doing all of the research, instead of going through and being like, what are her views on certain issues? What did she vote in her last debate? What are her trending articles? We're just going to have that all. So all the trending articles, all the most clicks from Elizabeth Warren, they're going to be there.
So I would be careful about trending articles.
Okay, definitely.
Because there's, you know, it turns into Facebook, right? And
Of course,
whoever clicks it the most gets the most thing. There are credible sources and there are not credible sources.
Of course it
And
would be.
right.
Stanford.
There's a great informatic that shows that I forget where it is, but it shows, you know, where CNN is and where Fox is and where's the Washington Post and where they're the least biased and the most factual and the most trusted. And I think if you're going to get to news sources, I think you should select from only those that are the best in there.
Yeah, definitely there will be a screening.
But I also think if it's voting history is just a fact, right?
Yes.
There's no debate, there's no articles, it's not articles, so voting history is just a fact. Platforms are supplied by the candidates or the parties. If there's an issue to vote on, there's the pro of this issue and the con of that issue, and those are pre-written.
Yes.
Right? You don't need to ask, right? When we all get the voting thing in the mail, the text there is pre-assigned. Mm-hmm. So I think you want to stay as far away from any bias or any or linkages that start to drift off to one side.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great point. I 100% agree.
Would you have so I plug in my zip code. Mm-hmm. Are you going to have the Lowell City Council on there?
So if there's an upcoming election, yes.
Okay.
And you will be getting, if there's an upcoming election, you'll get a notification, and there'll also be that election bar that you can get. So.
And just one last thing, you looked at your revenue was going to be easily great, but I think that's assumed that it's level loaded, right? But it's not. It's going to be when election seasons happen, it's going to explode and then it's going to die off to nothing for
a while. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. That is to be expected.
So have you heard of a survey of folks that would be interested in actually using this app?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like you said, it was 84% of the people were uneducated.
Didn't know. Yeah.
Or didn't know. I mean, so did you like pull a bunch of people that are in that category?
So
there are some people that are interested.
So that was based off of
based off of a previous done study. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And We have all our citations.
yeah.
So that was done off of
The US Census.
the US Census Bureau did that study. So that was obviously a previous study. But as far as, I think that the big thing is on the college campuses. So I know myself that we want, this is happening. It's just a matter of how we make it happen, okay? So we've been asking people, we haven't done a structured survey of the sorts, but we've been asking people, we wanted to figure out what was the biggest problem. Why aren't people voting? You know, why don't people care? And the biggest thing we have is, I don't have enough time. I don't have time to research. I go to my polls, I check boxes. Don't know who's on the election, but I check them, I go. You know, I'm engaged. You check boxes. The biggest thing is time, right? So we're fixing that factor. So we figured that the biggest problem was time, and then we moved forward with, that's the problem, how do we solve it? We solved this problem now. So then we asked people, would you, if this was an app, would you download it? And the overwhelming response is yes. The idea that in under 5 minutes you can figure out everything you need to know, that you don't have to be Google searching or going on the census or going on our government, anything. That in 5
it would solve that
overwhelmingly
Because
yes.
I would think like the 16% of the people, they're like super passionate about all that.
Yes,
So you'd be
definitely.
on this like all the time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
but the thing is also, we're not asking for a huge time commitment, we're asking for the 5 minutes. And people, when you hear that 5 minutes, people are like, yes, right away, yes.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna straighten our time, sorry. Languages. The language barrier is huge for
It is.
like, think about Lowell, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So would you have this in multiple languages? Select a
Definitely,
language?
and I want to get a translator. When I worked, while I worked for the Democratic Party, one of my friends speaks Spanish fluently, and a lot of the ads that are being sent out by political parties copied and pasted to Google Translate. But when you actually have native speakers looking through and reading it, it doesn't match. Like,
Right.
there's a lot of, we want it translated. So that definitely will be done.
Okay. That's a hard, that could be harder than you might think. But there's a lot of
For
stuff
the-
that is already pre-translated, like
There is.
the almost everything in Lowell, it's already, there's organizations that already put it in mind. Right?
So then that will obviously link, and anything that's not, we will translate.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting all of you.
You too, thank you.